Potato Diary on this Tuesday. Thank you so much for tuning in today. The Grey Cup is set. It's another week in the books in the NFL, and the Calgary Flames continue to be bad. That's what we're looking at on the show today. As always, you can find me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I am at Primetime Klein, twitch.tv/primetimepk, and you can email the show, couchpotatodiary@yahoo.com. First of all, a gigantic thank you to everyone who tuned in on HN Live and to the HN Live folks themselves. Just a remarkable weekend of hockey, and I'll get into that. Today's going to be a two-parter. Took the day off yesterday for the stat holiday, and so today we are going to do the Monday episode and then the Tuesday episode, just both on the Tuesday. But again, a massive shout out to everyone at HN Live. Just a fantastic production out there and putting on a great show in just kind of having us do our thing, and they make life very easy, and some really good hockey coming up. I'm going to get some of my thoughts out on that in part two, not like gigantic scouting report on a 13-year-old, but just kind of overall notes from the weekend. So that is what is coming up. Other than that, it's just business as usual this week. We got today we got the Grey Cup is set. We're going to look at the East and West Division Final. The NFL was what it was this week. I'm going to do something called diary entry. I've kind of done this a little bit before. If you're a longtime fan of mine, then you will know this one. But we're going to get into that. We are going to look at what happened at the UFC this weekend, and we're going to get into today's ticket. So there's a lot to get to. I should probably just stop talking and get into it with a fancy new graphic as we get ready for the Grey Cup. The Grey Cup in Hamilton goes this weekend, and we now know the participants. It's Tuesday, we better. It will be the Montreal Alouettes taking on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. We will get to the West Division champions in a second. First, let's start out east with Montreal. A surprising win over the Toronto Argonauts, but just a phenomenal performance from that defense. That was the one that stole the show, right? Like, you're going to see, 33, 38 points that Montreal put up. You're going to see that and go, oh man, Cody Fajardo balled out. And actually, I think quite the opposite. I'm not going to be too critical of the two teams in the Grey Cup just yet. That'll be for later in the week. But for now, I think the main thing that you have to look at from this Montreal team is how well that defense played. And I think specifically how well that front seven played, as they were getting pressure on Chad Kelly and forcing some pretty bad throws, at least early on. They were the ones that rattled Kelly. Anyway, you see that first down, or that first drive of the game. Ouellette makes the run to the outside, and it's like, okay, boy, they can do that whenever they want. And then it's a couple quick passes, and it's just chunk play all the way down. And then they get to the goal line, and it's intercepted. Why? Because there's pressure in Kelly's face. It forces a throw that needs to be on the outside, and it puts it inside. And it's just that. It's the distance across a human being, but that was enough to get an interception and a pick six. And from there, something had flipped in Kelly, who has been spectacular this season. He's going to be the MOP. That should not be questioned. He is absolutely 100%, or was actually 100%, the best player in the Canadian Football League this season. But he got rattled in this game. This was a really, really bad performance. And quite frankly, it was probably his first. Not a great time to do that. Not a great time to have your worst performance being in the East Division Final at home in front of basically a sold-out crowd out in Toronto. But this was such a dominant performance from the defense. But I do think you have to look at Kelly, and it's at least an eyebrow-raising thing. Like, he is still one, like the most talented quarterback, I think, in the league. And Toronto is going to be a Grey Cup favorite next year, I would presume. So, like, this isn't oh man, well, I guess Toronto actually did suck and Cali's not that good. That's not what this is. But this was one of the first times that adversity had been felt. Because, like, even going back to Kelly getting subbed in for the Grey Cup because of injury, he comes in and there wasn't a whole, I don't want to say a lot of resistance, but he was just able to move the ball and move the ball and move the ball, and off they go. Oh, my dog's streaming. But for him now, this team he did not handle adversity all that well in this game. I think he will be fine. I think Toronto will be fine. I think this is just a learning experience for the Toronto Argonauts quarterback. After that, like the offense for Montreal just did enough, right? Like they were put in good spots. Maybe a few too many field goals. Like as this game was going on, it was field goal, field goal, field goal. So okay, it feels like you're letting Toronto hang around in this game, and then eventually it got to be too much, and then that last pick six just closes the door. But they did enough offensively to win this game and not give it right back to Toronto, because Fajardo has had those games too. But he and this offense did enough to take advantage, put points on the board when they were given, and make your way to the Grey Cup. Basically, they just didn't screw up a great performance from their defense. But yeah, Montreal, a shocker, off to the Grey Cup after a dominant win in the East Final. Toronto will certainly regroup and be back next season, I have no question. In the West Final, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, with, again, a relatively convincing performance. This was a one-possession game until very, very late. And I think a lot of it, again, comes down to the play of that Winnipeg defense. They sacked Vernon Adams 10 times. They were in his face all evening, out in a cold, blustery Winnipeg. And Jackson Jeffcoat was a vintage Jackson Jeffcoat performance, with his pressure kind of up the middle, and just all of them. They were in the face of Vernon Adams all night long, and that forced some interceptions. It took BC out of field goal range. It didn't let the Lions become a big play offense because they did not have time to set up the big play. That was, I think, the big takeaway there. And what really kind of set the tone for this game for Winnipeg was Oliveira on that first drive. That touchdown, he gets pushed in, but it's that leg drive too, right? Like, it's not what we're seeing with the brotherly shove in the NFL. It's not just everyone pushing you that gets you. You need that leg drive from the player who has the football, and he provided that. But it was just the whole drive was him. And he really set that tone, like, hey, we are going to come out here and we're just going to punch you in the mouth for 60 minutes. And that's what they did. A really strong performance from this team all over. For BC, it's tough, man. Like, they are a really talented team, but there was just a couple of losses throughout the year that I think really set them back. This game might be a different story if they're able to play it indoors in Vancouver. They beat most of the bad teams, but there was just so many wins this season that they needed, in games where they needed, that they didn't get it. And I think Vernon Adams is really talented. I would maybe like another playmaker, and then if that's the pressure that's going to be faced by Winnipeg, you're going to have to address the offensive line a little bit, I think, out in BC. Defensively, I thought they played fine. But, like, again, they're the second best team in the West and have, I think, a real chance of being the best team in the West, maybe just as Winnipeg kind of ages out of this thing, but that it wasn't this year. And so I think that there needs to be a couple of additions to take this team over the top. But it should be a fun Grey Cup. Montreal against Winnipeg. We're gonna be focusing on this throughout the week. Grey Cup coverage this week. On part 2 of this episode, we're going to look at the early storylines that I'm going to be following as we get ready for the big game. Coming up on Wednesday, I will be revealing the CFL GOAT rankings. On Thursday, it will be the top players in the Canadian Football League. And on Friday, it will be a full breakdown of the Grey Cup between the Montreal Alouettes and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So there is your CFL talk. Let's get into a little NFL. All right. Normally we do the NFL recap on Monday's show, so we don't have the Monday Nighter to react to, but it's Tuesday, so we do. The Buffalo Bills continue to be frauds, right? Like, that's the main story. I think, honestly, from this weekend, the main story is, once again, the Buffalo Bills, as a championship contender, are just frauds. This was a putrid performance against a Denver team that has not been much resistance for others. Somehow Denver's 4-5, but the Buffalo, like, the Bills are half a game up on Denver. It was just bad. You can fire the offensive coordinator all you want. I think Sean McDermott it's becoming more and more apparent that whatever he is doing is a bit of the problem as well. Like, I think that McDermott has done a really good job of getting Buffalo out of the we haven't won a playoff game in 1,000 years rut. But I think to put this team over the top, there needs to be another guy in charge. But this is bad. Like, it's they have some, like, that penalty at the end. You can fire all the offensive coordinators you want, man. And look, as someone who's a Saskatchewan Roughriders fan, I know that penalty well. Everyone's going to say, oh, no, this was my fault. Oh, it was my fault. Oh, it was my fault. At the end of the day, man, you just, like, that is so basic to know how many players are out there. And offensively, like, they just couldn't do anything, so they fire the offensive coordinator. But it sounds like McDermott was kind of involved in some of that as well. We've been saying for a bit they need at least one more weapon on that team, and honestly probably two. And defensively, this team has been banged up, but defense wasn't the problem. Like, this isn't as good of a football team. And now that the rest of the AFC has kind of caught up, we're seeing the Bills fall further and further and further and further behind. Sunday Night Football, the Raiders somehow are a 500 football team. That was an atrocious football game. Max Crosby is an absolute game wrecker, 100%. Aiden O'Connell, I think we figured out he's not an NFL quarterback. Zach Wilson, I think we figured out he's not an NFL quarterback. That game was just brutal. Like, it was an awful game with two teams in playoff contention. I think it really does show the desperate state of the NFL right now. They are desperate for a real good quarterback class. And it sounds like you're going to get one, right? Like, it sounds like there are 4 first-round talents in this draft. Legitimate ones. Not like that one where it's, oh, well, it's Mac Jones. He's going in the first round, so whatever. Mac Jones isn't a first-round quarterback. Mac Jones might not be an NFL quarterback. It's just quarterbacking in this league right now is really bad. We need a couple of good drafts to get it back to a point where we need it to be, because it was a rough weekend, man. Like, you got 5 walk-off wins, so that was fun, but I don't think it was an overly well-played weekend of football. And the exclamation mark, Raiders, Jets, like that, it was just an abomination. Like, the Raiders get that touchdown, and it's, oh man, that feels out of reach now. And it wasn't, because the Raiders couldn't put the game away. But man, oh man, oh man, oh man. Rough go on Sunday night. Other big storylines from the weekend: CeeDee Lamb is now among the elite in the NFL for wide receivers. Like, he is in that top tier discussion now. And I like that Dallas has kind of just been like, yeah, take it, go, just go, take it, run. That is exactly what they needed for him, and exactly what he needed, I think. But this is an offense that I think can put a bunch of points up there against bad defenses. We have seen that. You're not going to prove anything to us against the Giants. We know you can beat the Giants. Let's see what you can do against some of these other higher quality teams now. That has to be the next step for this Dallas Cowboys team if we're going to take them as a team that's for real. Like, that's great. You beat the Giants. You've done it before. And then you came out and shit the bed against the Eagles and the 49ers. So I just can't take them seriously right now, but I can take CeeDee Lamb seriously. The Seattle Seahawks survive. They continue to be a really frustrating team to watch, because you'll see it, like, when they flash up on red zone, it's great, man. Like, it's Kenneth Walker just booking it, right? Or it's Lockett getting a pass deep over the middle, and it's just like, gone. DK Metcalf, physical specimen, right? Or it's Jacques Charbonnet now is doing some things. But then you sit down and watch the actual game, it's like, man, there's long stretches where we're not seeing them on red zone because they're not doing a fucking thing. It's just, I don't think they're a good team. I think that they are going to be one of those teams. I'm going to do this next week. I'm on Sportsnet 960 next week, so you get a bit more of the, again, kind of evergreen type stuff from this. I think we're going to do a quarterback show next week, and just like, who's got their quarterbacks for next year? And I don't think Seattle has theirs, quite frankly. What else? Oh, that's a real bad loss for the Ravens. Just as I was taking this team seriously, like, when we moved them up to number 2 in the power rankings, it's okay. This is this team. These guys are those dudes, right? You can't have that. Like, that's a tough one from Lamar Jackson. It's tough to blame them when they put up 31 points, but the defense put them in some pretty good spots. And that is a good Cleveland Browns defense that you were doing that against, but you just can't have that kind of a collapse. That was a chance to really solidify yourself as the number 2 in the division. As the day went, like, Cincinnati loses, so you have a chance to put some space between yourselves, Cincinnati, and Cleveland, and battle it out with whatever this Pittsburgh team is. You can't have losses like that. That's going to be the next step for Lamar, right? Like, we all know he's really talented. There are some good guys around him, and it seems like they've picked up the offense. This defense is pretty good now too. Need big wins now for Lamar Jackson, and we haven't seen it from him so far. The Houston Texans might be a bit for real. Like, CJ Stroud, it appears to be that dude. MVP is a bit much, I think, but playoffs could be, right? And like, with the Bengals getting off to that slow start and the Bills being the Bills, it feels like there is at least one opening in this AFC playoff picture that CJ Stroud might just walk through. And this is, there was a lot of criticism draft night when they made the trade to get Stroud and Will Anderson. But this feels like a complete team now that you can add different pieces to make it go from being like 5-4, 9-8, 10-7 type to, oh damn, this is one of the best teams in the league. Like it feels like they already, it's that thing that we talk about. They had now, and we didn't think they did before, so credit to them. But they have that foundation now that we hadn't seen from them before. So credit to them for doing that. And last thing, Mac Jones, isn't it? Like, Patriots are cooked. What an awful game. Awful game. And there was a lot of those this week. Like, it's the high level stuff is really good in the NFL. This has been a bad year in the NFL, man. Like, this has been a really, really bad year in the National Football League. So on that note, let's get to a new thing. New old thing. It's called a diary entry. So if you're new to the program, I take notes on everything. And, like some of this stuff, like look at bigger picture, like, oh, where this team fits in the East, where this team fits in the West, where's the AFC, NFC, the American League East, whatever. Like, try to do bigger picture type of things and storylines. But sometimes it's nice to just run through the notebook and see, what did I see? And so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to do these for more Flames games that I do Game Over for, because I talk about like the big picture stuff on Game Over. By the way, on there tonight with Mark Dumas as we do a head-to-head with them. So that is what we are going to be looking at coming up tonight. But so after that game, I'm going to have a full notebook full of stuff. I'm just going to run through like chronological order and go through it that way. So that is what's coming up now. It's time for a diary entry. All right, let's get into it. So the Calgary Flames, get off to a pretty good start here against Ottawa. This is Flames against Ottawa from the weekend, Saturday night. The Flames get off to a pretty good start. There's good pressure from this team early on. I really liked the start from Calgary, and you knew you were going to get a pretty good one. You're coming off of a tough loss against Toronto. It's a back-to-back. You know this team is going to come out and start to play pretty well, and they do that. Everything's flying. Coleman gets a chance, and then Mangiapane draws a penalty, and so Calgary gets the power play. And one of the things I'll bring up a couple times tonight, I liked Zari on the power play. I thought that he was able to set a couple things up. He gets an entry here that led to a chance early on, and so it feels like Calgary has some of the momentum. Then Greer finds Coleman, and all of a sudden there's a chance. Blake Coleman was fired out of a cannon in that game. I really like Blake Coleman's game. So it feels like momentum is kind of on Calgary's side. But then Ottawa gets the puck and they start to push a little bit. And Sanderson's shot, it's a laser. It gets deflected in by Matthew Joseph. Nothing Dustin Wolf can do. He's been sent back down, which is fine. Quite frankly, this isn't really a dumpster fire. You want him around a whole lot anyway. So let him cook in the American Hockey League for a little bit more. But he's great. He's the future. All of those things. But this was so deflating for a couple of reasons. One, you had played so well, and then Ottawa comes back down and scores. And it's just like, man, here we go again. But also, this was part of a real rough night defensively for this group. And this team is not good enough offensively to struggle this bad defensively. But Joseph just was able to stand in front of the net and get that deflection. Like, it was just, the front of the net was too easy for Ottawa to get. And that's been one of the things that's been frustrating for this team. This is not an overly talented hockey team, right? I think we can all kind of agree on that at this point. They don't make life difficult to play against them either. Like, the other team can get through the neutral zone with relative ease, and that's a problem. And then in the defensive zone, the Flames aren't making life challenging on anyone. Markstrom is bailing them out, but this was another one where it felt like earlier in the year where the D zone is just wide open for teams, and it gets very frustrating and becomes a little bit easy. And so I think you saw a couple of things highlighted in this early exchange, where this is a Flames team that struggles just putting the puck in the net, and this is a Flames team that struggles defending, and both of those things kind of came back to haunt them. But they keep skating, they keep moving, and again, it's the kids. It's Pospisil drawing a penalty, and it's Zari setting up a pretty good chance, as he was wont to do in this game. And then Huberdeau sets up a Hanifin chance, that gets stopped. Coleman gets another good chance. I really liked Coleman's game all day long, but they're getting their chances. They're just not able to capitalize them. Weegar gets a steal. That sets up a Lindholm chance. So like they are getting their opportunities, but it's one we talk about with this team time and time again. Where's the finish? You were supposed to get it from Coronado. He's in the American Hockey League. You were supposed to get it from Sharon Govich. He's not really doing that so far. Like, it's just, there isn't the finish on this team to take advantage of some of these opportunities. But you really start to see some good sustained pressure from Calgary as you close out the period. Like they started the first period well, had a bit of a blip, but then closed it out well. Like I thought if you're scoring this as an MMA fight, you're giving the Flames the first round 10-9, even though they took a pretty hard punch there. But then the second period, Ottawa gets a power play. Jacob Bernard-Docker off of a shot kind of created a bit of pressure, and that draws the penalty. And then a Chychrun shot from the point gets deflected. It's up in the air. And as it's coming down, there are two Sens parked between, like, there is nobody between two Sens and Markstrom. That's a problem. Again, like, it's too easy in front of the net. Sanderson bats it in. It's his third of the year. And now Ottawa's up 2-0. And now your great start and all of these things. And now you are really chasing this game. That was a real bummer for them. Again, nothing in front. Kubalik had a really strong play in the neutral zone that took one away from Backlund, which was a really nice play that set up a Tarasenko chance. But again, it was just outmuscled. I don't want to say outwilled, because we're getting a little whatever, but he just beat him up and beat him to the puck there. And then this was such a great opportunity. Huberdeau gets a breakaway, and it's like this could solve so many problems. Like this dude just needs something going his way, and he gets a breakaway, and it's a nothing shot that gets cast aside so easily. And it's just like, of course, right? Like $10.5 million player. And that's what we get out of that. Like it was rough, man. Where are we here? Oh yeah. Then Zari gets another chance. Like he had a number of really good plays in this game. He makes a nice move at a nice play at the blue line, holding it in, setting up a Sharangovich play. Like Zari's not showing up on the score sheet in this game. But he had a lot of plays that you really like from him in this one that kind of swung play into the Flames' favor for at least a little bit, and this was certainly one of them. And then off of a nice play from Pospisil, Coleman scores. Hamonic kind of had your controller has disconnected moment for a moment, and then Pospisil's able to go out. We talked about it on Game Over. I don't know why. I think it was Korpisalo in that, right? I don't know why Korpisalo is so focused on Pospisil and his one career goal or whatever it is, and just, you know what? There's no way he's passing to Stanley Cup champion Blake Coleman right over there. But he does, and Coleman finishes, and now it's 2-1. It's like, okay, your depth guys have come up. It's a big moment. Now is your chance to really work your way back into it. Calgary gets a 5-on-3. Gives up a 5-on-3 then. And that's where it kind of was a bit deflating. Like, Coleman had a great game, but he took a couple bad penalties in this game that just stopped that momentum cold for the Flames in this game. They are able to survive a 5-on-3, but then third period, Zadorov and his trade request turn the puck over behind the net, and then it's just quick bang, bang, bang in the back of the net. Ottawa leads 3-1, and then a bit later, Stützle finds Hamonic, and it's 4-1, and then it's over. Like at that point, like the game is just done. In the end, aside from goaltend, like I don't think this game was Wolf's fault. In the end, offensively, did not capitalize on your opportunities. Defensively, gave up too many opportunities too easily. And special teams, you had some power play chances. I thought the penalty kill looked all right tonight. They do give up the one power play goal, albeit rather unconventionally. But there wasn't really one facet of the Flames game that you come away from it thinking, yeah, great, loved it. They played so well, just love that. So this is a Flames game that really, I think, highlights what's wrong with this team and what needs to get fixed. And there's going to be a lot of changes in Calgary. I think probably over the next month, even. I think the ball is really rolling in that direction. And I think it's time. Like, this is just, it's not a good hockey team. Like, that is what it comes down to. This team is just not good enough to really compete and be this old, quite frankly. So there is your diary entry. We're going to do more of these with the Flames and more of these just in general as the sports year goes on into 2024. Now we close the show with a bit of fight talk. UFC 295 going down at Madison Square Garden on Saturday night. 2 new champions crowned. That was going to be the case regardless, but 2 new champions crowned. In the co-main event, Tom Aspinall is the new interim UFC heavyweight champion with a win just over a minute in over Sergey Pavlovich. Just the difference in this fight, and it went a minute, but the reason that it only went a minute is because of the brick-like hands of Tom Aspinall. Perfectly set up punch, right, maybe not even perfectly set up, but perfectly landed right on the temple. The right hook comes over the top, and it buckles Pavlovich for a second, and then another right drops him, and it's curtains. It's done. This was one of the things, like against both these guys, you have to kind of be perfect, right? Like Pavlovich has so many ways that he can beat you. Aspinall is just a tank, man. And I feel like he has a number of ways to beat you, but he is one of those guys where you kind of have to be perfect when you fight him because he can catch you once and it's over. And that's what happened here. Caught him once and it was over. You feel bad for Pavlovich because like he gets caught and that's it. But like he won the first minute until he gets punched in the brain. But like he showed early on, like that striking is something to be threatened. And again, that he had a few tools in the toolbox. I just felt Aspinall was just a more dangerous fighter in all, and you see it play out over. I think it was a minute 9 to kind of close the show. But another big moment for UK MMA, and this started out as the year of Mexican MMA. With Alexa Grasso with her win, and Moreno's a champion. Yair Rodriguez is getting these opportunities. This started as the year for Mexican MMA. It might close as the year for UK MMA. They now have a heavyweight champion, albeit interim, but still. The most recent fighter to win a fight in the UFC's heavyweight championship picture is Tom Aspinall. So they have an interim champion. Leon Edwards is defending his title December 16th against Colby Covington for a championship opportunity there. So this is like he's defending his title. So this is a chance for UK MMA to go into 2024 really on a real high note. And I think that's a market that and Canada were major markets back in the like early 2010s, late 2000s, I guess. And those have kind of gone away, I think, in both cases. And I think now both they're working on rebuilding now. With the UK, it's more the fighters. For UFC, it's a date in Toronto coming up in January. In the main event, it was Alex Pereira becoming a 2-division champion in just 11 professional fights with a win over Yuri Prochazka in the main event here. And like this was a really good fight. One of the things that jumped out to me early was how well Pereira survived the ground. That was not something I was anticipating from him. I thought that was going to be a real edge in this fight for Prochazka. Again, maybe a bit more of the well-rounded fighter, but what happens in this fight, he gets the takedown, pins him up against the cage there in the first round, and then gets the takedown. From there, Pereira survives pretty well. Like, Prochazka is able to land a couple of good shots from top control, like get some good ground and pound in there. But overall, this was a not an exchange. Like I thought that the exchange won Prochazka the round, but it was not this dominant, like, okay, well, can't do that again. I think you come away from that with Pereira, and his corner was saying, like, you felt it now. I think you come away being like, yeah, if I get taken down, I can get back up and I can survive. And that's what he did. And so I think that gives you a lot of confidence. And you see the second round, it was all on the feet, basically. There was a couple of clinch moments there from Prochazka, but the ground was not even an area that Yuri really wanted to go into. And so I think Pereira kind of checked that box. And then the investment in the leg kicks was very obvious. Prochazka was limping on it about 2 minutes in. And it was noticeable. It's so quick, the strikes that he is able to get off. And then the finish comes. Prochazka's landing a couple good shots. He did a good job there in that second round of kind of cornering Prochazka, getting him up against the fence and just kind of teeing off. That was a really big moment for him. But then he gets caught coming in. It's a counter, just pop. It drops Prochazka. Elbows start coming down while Prochazka's going for takedown defense. And one of them absolutely buckles Prochazka, and down he goes. It was a hotly debated stoppage. I had no problem with it. And I was watching it after I knew what had happened, and so I was waiting for this bad stoppage. And like in the moment, you can absolutely see like Prochazka doesn't seem like he's that out, and he gets up pretty all right. But when you go back and look at the replay, like one of those elbows, and he just kind of folds and collapses back. And so when you see that, like if that had happened, if those two were just standing, like just face to face, mano a mano, and Prochazka throws like an old David Loiseau type elbow over the top, and like he's throwing it like it's a right hook, and it catches Prochazka and he falls in that way, you're gonna stop the fight. It would be entirely dramatic and just like folding back like a building. But because it was kind of like it was in almost this like visually muffled way, like you don't see the full effect of it because he's already on his knees, and then he kind of just goes back in a way that he would anyway. It looks like it's a bad stoppage. I had no problem with the stoppage, but now we are talking about one of the best starts to an MMA career in the history of this sport with what Alex Pereira has been able to do. And look, I have underestimated this guy as, oh, he happened to get a win against the right dude in kickboxing. This guy is legit. He is perfect for 205 pounds, and we have seen a lot of instability at 205 for a very long time. I was going to say since John Jones. That is not an era that's going to be remembered for stability at the top of 205 pounds. But you know what I mean? From a championship perspective, it's gone from this title fight, oh, that was a draw. Well, we're going to have 200 different guys. And okay, well, now that guy's hurt. So we're going to, like, it has been all over the place. Now I think you have that cornerstone of the 205 pound division. And his name is Alex Pereira. All right, let's wrap up the show with today's ticket. Four games on today's ticket this evening. We will start with the NBA. The Denver Nuggets taking on the LA Clippers. LA's experiment with James Harden hasn't worked yet. I know Murray's banged up right now, but I think that this is a scenario that Jokic, I think, can really take advantage of. And so I think this is going to be one of those ones where the talking head shows after the next day are going to be like, oh my God, the Clippers are fucked. I think the Nuggets beat them up, so I love taking Denver minus 5.5. Atlanta minus 3.5 against Detroit. I just think even though Trey isn't lighting the world on fire, Atlanta's playing some decent basketball, and I still don't buy anything that Detroit is selling at the current moment. Moving into the NHL, Arizona's playing some pretty good hockey right now, and I can get them plus 1.5 at not bad odds against the Dallas Stars. So we're just going to do that. They are plus 195 to win. That's not going to be an officially tracked one, but we'll sprinkle on that little money line there. And then Tampa Bay to beat up St. Louis tonight, minus a goal and a half. I think the Lightning are better, so we're going to go with that. So, 4 games on today's ticket. That is today's show. Thank you all so much. Again, you can catch me tonight on Game Over on the SDPN YouTube channel. It's a head-to-head. It's me and Mark Dumont after the Habs and Flames game wraps up. So we're going to be, so watch out for that. Coming up in part 2 of the show today, we're going to look at early storylines from the Grey Cup, and then it's a focus on the waiver wire, the stupid good fantasy football team, and then we're going to close with a couple thoughts of mine from the Rocky Mountain Classic this week. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be up like basically right after this is up. So check all of that out. Thank you. Remember, rate, review, subscribe wherever you can. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I am at Primetime Klein, twitch.tv/primetimepk, and you can email this show, couchpotatodiary@yahoo.com. Thank you all so much, and I will talk to you all very soon.